Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that sounds maybe a bit technical, but is actually super critical. SOC engagements and their reports.
Yeah, it's not just ticking boxes. It's really about trust and how businesses work together.
Exactly. So our mission, if you will, is to demystify these reports. We want to understand what a service auditor actually does and how their findings impact businesses and maybe you if you rely on these services.
It's like getting a backstage pass to see how companies handle their critical operations and security.
Right. We're working from some really detailed material here on reporting on SOC engagements.
And what's really interesting, I think, is how these reports provide that essential lens,
Yeah.
that visibility into outsourced services. It gives you clarity.
Confidence and clarity. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the core. An auditor is forming an opinion. What exactly are they trying to figure out?
Well, fundamentally, they're looking at the subject matter, whatever the report is focusing on, and comparing it against certain criteria.
Okay, criteria. And how do they get to that opinion? What's the process?
Two key things. First, did they get enough evidence? And was it the right kind of evidence? We call that sufficiency and appropriateness.
Right, enough good quality info.
Exactly. And second, are there any uncorrected misstatements, like errors or things left out that are material, either on their own or lumped together?
Okay, material. That word pops up a lot. Can you break that down simply? What does material mean here?
Sure. Think of it like this. Is the issue big enough that it could actually change a decision someone makes based on this report?
Ah, so not just a tiny typo, but something significant.
Precisely. Something that genuinely matters to a user of the report relying on that service organization.
Got it. That makes sense. So the auditor's opinion then focuses on a few specific things.
Yes. Is management's description of their own system fair? Are the controls they have actually designed suitably for their purpose?
Okay.
And then for what's called a Type 2 report, did those controls actually work effectively over a period of time?
Right. The difference between design and actual operation.
Exactly. And it's also crucial to know if you're looking at a SOC1 or SOC2 report because they focus on different things.
Okay, tell us about that difference. SOC1.
SOC1 is all about controls that could affect a user entity's financial reporting. So think impact on the financial statement.
So if I use a payroll provider, their SOC1 would tell me about controls affecting my payroll expenses, taxes, that sort of thing.
Exactly right. Whereas SOC2 is broader.
How so?
It looks at controls related to 5 key areas called the trust services criteria: security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy.
Wow. Okay, that covers a lot more operational ground. Security, keeping data private.
Right. And this really brings up a key question for you, the user. What do you need assurance on? Is it the financial side, or is it more about how they protect data, keep systems running, process things accurately?
That helps you choose the right report to look at.
It absolutely does. So, summarizing, the auditor checks: is the description fair? Are controls designed well? And for Type 2, did they work over time?
Okay, crystal clear. Now let's talk about the outcomes. The auditor does all this work. What kind of opinions can they actually issue? Our source mentions 4 main types.
Yeah, and it really depends on what they find, the specific facts and circumstances. The best one, the one everyone hopes for, is the unmodified opinion, sometimes called unqualified.
The gold standard.
Exactly. It's basically a clean bill of health. The auditor is saying, look, in all material respects, the description is fair, the controls are designed well, and for Type 2, they worked effectively.
So green light, everything looks good, nothing majorly wrong.
Pretty much. For SOC1, that means the financial reporting controls are described fairly and designed suitably. For Type 2, they also operated effectively.
And for SOC2, same idea, but for those trust services criteria.
Correct. The system fits the description, controls are designed for the service commitments based on security, availability, etc. And for Type 2, they worked. And one important detail. If the system relies on controls the user entity needs to implement, we call those CUECs, or controls from a subservice organization, CSOCs, the unmodified report will mention that. It adds context.
Right, acknowledging that other pieces are needed for the whole thing to work. Okay, so that's the ideal. But what if things aren't perfect? This is where it gets interesting, right? Modifications to the opinion.
Exactly. This is crucial. An auditor has to modify their opinion if one of two things happens. Either they just couldn't get enough good evidence.
They were blocked somehow, or the evidence wasn't there.
Could be either. Or second, they did get the evidence, but concluded that the subject matter itself, the system description, the controls, is not okay in a material way.
So they found significant problems.
Right. For SOC1 or SOC2, this could mean the description isn't fair, controls aren't designed right, or they didn't operate effectively for type 2. Or, again, they just couldn't verify things properly.
But how do they decide which modified opinion to issue?
It comes down to two factors. The nature of the problem, what exactly is wrong? And how pervasive is it? Does it affect just one small part, or does it undermine the whole system?
Pervasive, like widespread.
Exactly. Based on that, they choose between qualified, adverse, or a disclaimer.
Okay, let's break those down. Qualified opinion first. What does that signal?
A qualified opinion basically says, okay, except for this specific issue we found, everything else looks materially okay.
So like a specific problem area, but not a total disaster.
You got it. The issue is material, it's significant, but it's not pervasive. It's contained. The report will point you right to the problem.
Makes sense. Then what about the adverse opinion? That sounds...
It is.
Is
It's
that
the worst one, really. It means the problems, misstatements in the description, or control failures are both material and pervasive.
So significant and widespread.
Right. The issues are so fundamental that the whole description is misleading, or the controls are just fundamentally flawed across the board. A huge red flag.
Definitely sounds like one. And the last one, disclaimer of opinion.
This is when the auditor essentially says, we can't give an opinion at all.
Why would they do that?
Because they couldn't get enough appropriate evidence, and the potential impact of what they couldn't see is judged to be both material and pervasive. They just don't have the basis to say if things are okay or not.
So it's like an unknown, but potentially a very big unknown.
Exactly. It's often just as concerning as an adverse opinion because you don't know what might be lurking there. There's a major limitation on the audit.
Our source material is a helpful way to think about this, right? Based on the nature and pervasiveness.
Yes, it's a good summary. If the issue is lack of evidence and it's material but not pervasive, qualified. If lack of evidence is material and pervasive, disclaimer.
Okay.
If the issue is actual misstatements or control failures and they're material but not pervasive, qualified. But if those failures are material and pervasive, inverse.
That framework really clarifies the different levels of severity. Okay, we understand opinions now. Let's look inside the report itself. What are the main sections we need to know about?
There are 4 key parts. First, management's description of the system.
So the company's own story about how things work.
Pretty much. Management has to document their system. For SOC1, this description focuses on those controls affecting users' financial reporting. It'll cover services, procedures, controls, any subservice organizations they use.
All the financial control stuff.
Right. It helps you, as a user auditor perhaps, see how their system plugs into your financial processes.
And for SOC2, the description changes focus.
Totally. For SOC2, it's all about security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy. The description outlines services, commitments, system components, maybe incidents they've had, which trust criteria apply.
It paints a picture of their operational and security setup.
Exactly. And related to that, sometimes you'll see info on their cybersecurity risk management program, basically, how they handle cyber threats. Protect, detect, respond, recover.
Okay, so that's the description. What's next?
Management's assertions. This is really important.
Assertions, like formal statements.
Yes, management has to provide a written assertion. It's their formal claim that, yes, our description is fair, yes, our controls are designed properly, and for type 2, yes, they worked effectively.
They're putting their name on the line.
Absolutely. And if they refuse, if management won't provide that assertion,
What happens then?
the auditor generally has to walk away from the engagement or issue a disclaimer of opinion. It's a non-starter.
Wow, okay. That shows how critical management buy-in is. So, description, assertion.
Yeah.
What's the third piece?
The Independent Service Auditor's Report, this is where the opinion we just talked about actually lives.
The auditor's own section. What should we look for here besides the opinion itself?
Definitely check the scope section. What exactly did they audit? Against which criteria? Also, the responsibilities sections, who was responsible for what? Management for the controls, auditor for the examination.
Right, clear roles.
And don't skip the inherent limitations part. It's a reality check that no system's perfect. It helps you understand the boundaries of the assurance.
Good point. And the fourth component you mentioned earlier.
That's the auditor's test of controls and results, but it's only in Type 2 reports.
Because Type 2 is the one that checks if controls actually worked over time.
Precisely. So for SOC 1 to 2, you get that opinion on operating effectiveness and this detailed section showing what tests the auditor did and what they found.
And for SOC 1 Type 1, that section is missing.
Correct. Same for SOC 2. The Type 1 report focuses just on design at a point in time, so no tests of operating effectiveness, no results section.
That distinction is huge. Type 1 is a snapshot. Type 2 is like a movie showing how things worked over a period.
That's a great way to put it. Knowing that difference is vital for you as the user to understand the level of assurance you're getting.
Okay, let's tackle another complexity. Companies often use other companies, right? Subservice organizations. How do they fit into SOC reports?
Right, it's common. A vendor is considered a subservice organization if their services are important for the main service organization's controls, either for financial reporting, SOC 1, or the trust services criteria, SOC 2, SOC 3.
So if they're a key part of the chain.
Exactly. And when they exist, management has two main ways to handle them in the report: the carve-out method or the inclusive method.
Carve out. Sounds like they leave them out.
Sort of. The carve-out method excludes the subservice organization's specific controls, the CSOCs, from the scope of the main audit report.
Okay.
The report will still identify the subservice org, what they do, what controls are expected there, and how the main company monitors them, but the auditor doesn't test the subservice org's controls directly.
Got it. So the inclusive method must be.
The opposite. It includes the subservice organization's relevant description and controls right within the main service organization's report.
So the auditor examines their controls too.
Yes, as if they were part of the main organization system for the purpose of the report. It gives a more complete picture in one place.
When would you use one versus the other? Why choose?
Well, inclusive is often better if the subservice is really tightly integrated, or maybe they don't have their own SOC report, but it can be complex to arrange. Carve-out is more common if the inclusive method is just too difficult, maybe the auditor isn't independent, or, importantly, if the subservice organization already has its own SOC report that users can get.
Ah, so you can just point to their report instead.
Right, or if the subservice just doesn't want to be included.
Is there ever a time you can't use carve-out?
Yes. If the subservice organization is so critical, so integral, that leaving their controls out would make the main report basically useless or misleading, you can't use the carve-out method. It has to provide meaningful assurance.
That makes sense. The report has to be useful. And how does the report show which method was used?
It's stated very clearly in the auditor's report. It will explicitly say whether the subservice org's controls are included or excluded from the scope and the auditor's testing. No ambiguity.
Okay, now, slightly different but related. Complementary user entity controls, or CUECs. What are those?
CUECs are things that you, the user entity, the client, need to do on your end for the service organization's controls to actually work as intended.
So controls that are my responsibility as the customer.
Exactly. Like maybe you need to provide accurate data or review reports they send you, or manage user access on your side, or encrypt data before sending it.
Examples the source gave included security monitoring by the user or physical access controls at the user site.
Perfect examples. If CUECs exist and are necessary, management has to list them in their description and make it clear that the user entity is responsible for them.
So we have CSOEC's controls from the subservice organization, the partner,
Right.
and CUEC's controls from IS, the user entity. That we pass key idea from the source is pretty handy. We file in for user entity, pass for partner subservice.
It's a great mnemonic. Helps keep track of who needs to do what.
And what's the impact on the auditor's opinion if these CUECs or CSOCs are necessary?
Simple but important. The auditor's opinion paragraph must include a statement saying that the opinion is based on the assumption that those CUCs and or CSOCs are in place and operating effectively.
So it flags that reliance on external controls.
Precisely. It tells you the assurance depends partly on things outside the direct scope of this specific audit report.
Okay, let's loop back quickly to the modified opinions.
Right.
How does the actual language in the report change? For a qualified opinion, you mentioned a separate paragraph.
Yes, right before the opinion paragraph itself, there's a section called Basis for Qualified Opinion that describes the specific issue. Then the opinion starts, in our opinion, except for the effects of the matter described in the Basis for Qualified Opinion paragraph.
For clear signposting.
Yeah.
And for an adverse opinion.
Similar structure, a basis for adverse opinion, paragraph detailing the material and pervasive problems. But the opinion itself is blunt. It'll say something like, the description does not fairly present, or the controls were not suitably designed, or did not operate effectively. No hedging.
Ouch. Okay. And the disclaimer of opinion, how does that read differently?
The changes start right away. Instead of, we have examined, it says, we were engaged to examine. It explicitly states they couldn't get sufficient appropriate evidence. There's no paragraph saying the auditor believes their evidence is sufficient, because it wasn't. And the basis for disclaimer of opinion paragraph explains the limitation. Then it concludes, we do not express an opinion.
It really highlights the lack of information.
Absolutely. And the source gives good examples of those basis for modification paragraphs. They might say plainly, like, passwords are used here but not there, pinpointing a control gap. Or explain why a control design lacks a necessary approval step.
That transparency is key, even when the news isn't good.
It has to be.
Yeah.
The goal is clarity for the user. What's fascinating is how these precise modifications guide you directly to the specific weaknesses.
We have definitely covered a lot today.
Yeah.
From why SOC reports exist to how opinions are formed, the different types of opinions, what's in the report, handling subservice orgs, CUECs. Yeah. It's quite the landscape.
It really is. But understanding it is so important. These aren't just compliance papers. They're fundamental tools for trust in business relationships, especially when you rely on outsourced services.
They provide that critical clarity and confidence we talked about earlier.
Exactly. If you connect this to the bigger picture, SOC reports are becoming a kind of universal language for demonstrating accountability and control effectiveness in our digital world. They help you assess risk and make informed choices.
So hopefully the next time you see a SOC report, it won't seem so intimidating. You'll have a much better sense of what to look for, what the different opinions mean, and how to interpret the details. You'll appreciate that dance between evidence, criteria, and the final opinion.
It's all about building that informed trust.
Definitely. So thinking about all this, what really stands out to you about how auditors use these detailed reports to build and communicate trust between organizations?